that their home life is just this, train wreck. God gives common grace, and so that's not the case. But depending on how sin works out in that home, they may be looking for some sense of stability. And so as they see you, just trying to engage them in relationship and knowing, okay, you're a safe person I can talk to. You show love for me, and you're trying to get me to talk about these spiritual things. I think often that they will open up with time.
That's good. So one thing I find so fascinating is how the Bible actually addresses this kind of thing. We read the book of Titus, and Titus chapter 2 seems so unfamiliar to how we tend to do children and youth ministry. But Titus 2 refers to acts of older women mentoring younger women, and older men mentoring younger men. And that assumes, I think, that these are cases in which the older people are also spiritually more mature. And I think this is really cool, because this isn't just saying, go to your youth pastor, go to your young adult pastor. And probably the young adults, the young men and the young women, would have been young teenage fathers and mothers who in their society were relatively normal, but probably teenagers nonetheless. And I think we can have this kind of Titus 2 type mentorship, where we have older men in the faith come alongside younger men, come alongside teenage guys, and really mentor them, and really take time to supplement the work that the parents do, and supplement the work that even like the pastors do, and being an encouragement, as well as older godly women towards teenage girls as well. So one example of this as well in my own life story, I remember that there was this family in our church and the youth group in my church back in Northern Illinois when I was growing up. And it was really mature, one of the most mature families that I'd really gotten to know. Just really great family. And they would often invite us over. They would invite me over for their small group sometimes that they had with other people, but I'd get to stay sometimes for dinner. And I mean, both the mom and the dad of that family really, really loved on me, and especially the father. And I remember the ways in which I really looked up to this guy. He was kind of like a spiritual uncle to me, I saw a lot of the ways that he discipled his own kids, and I thought it was an example of what I might want to do one day. One other seemingly random thing that I think you can do practically to act in these kind of roles, to build at least towards these roles, might be with a teenager. Take on your time and maybe hire one of the church teen girls to babysit your kids. Maybe hire one of the church teen guys or girls to mow your lawn, and build that relationship with them, that they know that you care about them, they know that you show them respect and honor, and so that you can head towards that kind of Titus 2 relationship.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I like that idea.
And how can we help these untraditional kids and teens embrace their moms and dads in their God-given roles, even when they don't know Jesus as their parents?
I think you want to just regularly, with everything, you're pointing them to God's Word. What does God's Word say about the relationship that you have, what role they have, and help them to see that these parents are God's gift to them.
Yes.
Even though they're not believing, they are still God's gift to them, and they may have some wisdom on matters that, even though the kid has the Holy Spirit and the parent doesn't, the parent has learned some things about how life works, and can be a blessing to provide for them, to protect them, and to genuinely to love them. I think you want to regularly speak of parents with respect, and not be like, oh yeah, your loser dad, and encourage the kids to pray for those parents, in hopes that they would love those parents more, rather than growing bitter towards them or proud towards them.
Yeah, that's good. I really like your answer, and I think it really answers that sufficiently. And how do we then equip that untraditional parental figures, whether it be the foster parent, whether it be the grandparent, or whatever it is, to disciple the next generation, even if they're not a traditional parent?
Well, I think you want to look to identify who those folks are and to engage them, let them know that they're there. Something that we've found somewhat helpful here is doing workshops when possible. And we try to I try to make sure that I'm including others who are not just parents, and even in the language that we use. I don't always do this, but parents and guardians or things like that. But I think that personal element of, I know that you're trying to invest in your grandchild or your niece or whoever it is, and just making it a point to reach out to them, to resource them. Whether it's through recommendations or actually giving them material, like, hey, this is something, or hey, you should listen to the TFM podcast, or whatever it is, and address them publicly, whether in writing or speaking situations, just acknowledging them and encouraging them in God's power and His love to use their influence, whether it's they actually live with the child or they're just invested in the child's life. That God can take that and use it.
Yeah. So I heard you saying a lot of the same things I think that you would say about a traditional family. And I think that's great, because I think that's something that we really need to hit on. A lot of times untraditional parental figures don't feel like they're included in a lot of these parental discipleship discussions, or really included and considered truly parents. I think they often will feel left out. And so we should invite them to these same kind of things. And they actually might shock you. I've known of people that have led family discipleship type of seminars that have found that untraditional parents are sometimes substantially more receptive of going to that kind of thing and taking up the challenge. But we have to, I think, do this kind of call slowly and patiently, because, a lot of times when untraditional cases come, they might be battling with some difficulties that the vast majority of us would not experience. And they might, even an age situation, they might have to be raising up grandkids, but at the same time dealing with the adult children of themselves, dealing with their own adult children, rather. But I think along those lines, we need to encourage them in their special hard task. And I don't think untraditional parental roles get enough encouragement sometimes, because really what they do is incredible. And I think we should go out of the way and find these kind of cases and just tell them how extraordinary we think this work is. And I think when we do that, they might be considerate of doing even more intentional work of spiritually discipling these kids.
Yeah, I like what you said.
But going kind of a step further, how do we cater our family discipleship efforts to non-Christian parents? Or is this just a total waste to do that kind of thing?
I've heard the analogy used of sometimes in a conversation where you're trying to be evangelistic. You can't always necessarily get all the content that the truth's trying to share, but you try to put a pebble in their shoe that they have to tend to. And so, looking to try to engage them in conversation and ask provocative questions when you have opportunity. And I think even doing some counseling or making it known that you're available to do some counseling, whether it's related to the child, marriage, depression, anxiety, I think those common things that you'd see, that can be a way kind of in the door. Sending items home, whether it's paper handouts, emails, text, just looking for ways to communicate to them. But I think that just trying to get them to think about their own souls, and then how, their child's soul, and how they have a role in that. And I can't say that I've done this with, great success, but that's, something that I have in mind.
Yeah. So we had a case at a previous church I was at. I remember where it was pretty clear it was a non-church family, and I was glad to have them visit for a kind of complicated reason. And at the church I was at before, we would always give out a physical copy of these take-home sheets, just because, so it got right in people's hands. It was kind of intentional in that reason. And we had this family visit, and part of me was debating, why do I even bother? It's just a waste to even give it to this person. And a lot of people didn't get around to doing it, period, that were even Christians. And I gave it to them, and I remember I conversed with these parents later on. And I found out that they actually did it. They took it seriously, and they're really even thankful for these take-home sheets related to the lesson. And they worked on that work. And so they got that teaching, really, and they were encouraged in their role as a parent in a really exciting and surprising way. And I want to ask, though, further, can this even be an evangelism opportunity in these kinds of cases?
I Absolutely. I mean, I think just it can so naturally flow because people tend to associate Christianity with morality and behavior. And yes, there is definitely that's there. But parents may even want their kid to go to church to get some, moral instruction, maybe get the fear of God put in them kind of thing. And so that you can trace back your steps to the source of that and to the bigger questions. And so it can become a very just natural evangelistic opportunity.
Yeah. So our church supports Child Evangelism Fellowship, and that does a lot of really good work. And I've got a close friend, Stephen Davis, that we actually had on the podcast and talk about Child Evangelism Fellowship. And Child Evangelism Fellowship, I watched some of their videos, some of their testimony videos of their work. And they had a woman, I think it was a Muslim background, and she had trusted her kid to go to an after school Bible lesson thing that Good News Club, they're called, that CF was doing. And she told the story of how she got these communications of what they're teaching, and basically she ended up trusting in the Lord, becoming a Christian because of this kind of communication, because of the message that her child was receiving, and then she received it in the parent follow-up material, and she became a Christian because of it. So I think very clearly we can have examples just like that. I'm not going to say that we always will, but there's always hope that that kind of case could happen, even through our efforts at parental discipleship.
Yeah, I mean, the Lord can use so many different things.
He certainly can. So, well, it's been a good discussion, and I hope this is an encouragement to cases where people might not take this actively as much as we might hope. But I also think, as much as we say today in our podcast, that cases where people aren't discipled by their parents are not hopeless. We think it's a good and very God-honoring work to disciple your children. And I really want to call upon everybody who listens to try to be more intentional each and every day in the discipleship of the next generation, whether you're working in children or youth ministry, or whether you're a parent, or whether you're just listening to it and you might babysit your niece or nephew once every 6 months.
Yeah. Yes, please be encouraged and keep at it.
Well, a good discussion with you today, Ben.
Yes, it was. Thanks for bringing up this topic.
God bless.
God bless.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Theological Family Ministry Podcast. If you have enjoyed this episode, please give us a review on iTunes and share the podcast with your friends on social media. All new episodes are available to listen to on Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, Spreaker, and iTunes. We hope you have a great week, and join us again every first and third Thursday.